Welcome to part 6 in our series comparing the experiences between atheists and libertarians as they each debate their opposition. This part is all about exclusivity. Both atheists and libertarians have to deal with people who want to exclude them from society, or at least inhibit their own personal activities that don't affect anyone else. Religion has a shameful past of being oppressive whenever it's gained any degree of power. Just think of the Crusades and the Inquisition. Even today, religiously dominated governments in the Middle East and elsewhere are creating a lot of trouble for the rest of us. Even here in the First World, we're having problems. In places such as Denmark, you can't even draw a picture of Muhammad because
you might offend a Muslim.
In the UK, even though they've technically gotten rid of the blasphemy laws just 2 years ago, you can still be arrested because
that speech is offensive to some people.
And if a religious person is offended by your blasphemous speech and it gets called hate speech, well, that law really wasn't repealed now, was it? Even here in the US, the country where freedom of religion is guaranteed by the Constitution, and yes, that includes freedom from religion, at least freedom from being forced to adhere to Bronze Age mythology in some way.
We need creationism taught in schools. Teach the controversy. We need to stop contraceptives. Ban pornography. We need abstinence-only sex education policies.
They even have sneaky ways of slipping in abortion restrictions. It's true that not all religious people want to force these views on others, but a lot of them do, and they can be a potent force in society. So how do you allow for diverse ideologies in a system that's dominated by religion? The answer is, you can't. Like the big Indians and the little Indians of Gulliver's Travels, you have to eat your eggs the way they say to. And if you want to eat your egg from the other end, well, prepare to be ostracized or even punished. A secular system, on the other hand, would let people eat their eggs however they want. And this was the absurdity of the Lilliputians, that this possibility just never occurred to them. Jonathan Swift wrote that part of the novel based on the conflict between the Catholic Church and the Church of England that was going on at the time. If the C of E was in power, you weren't allowed to be Catholic, and vice versa. Guy Fawkes wasn't trying to blow up the Houses of Parliament to overthrow a tyrannical government so that we could have freedom. He was trying to overthrow a tyrannical Anglican government to establish a tyrannical Catholic government, and neither one could allow for the existence of the other. And the religious right in this country doesn't want to allow for things like contraception and pornography. There really is no difference in that regard. But, since atheism is a negative philosophy, what it would impose is a secular system where people can believe what they want. And before you bring Stalin and Mao into the conversation, understand that, although they were atheists, the problems with their system was not the negative philosophy of atheism, it was the positive philosophy of communism that drove them to do what they did. Just as you can be whatever religion you want in a secular system, but you can't be an atheist in a theocracy, you can practice whatever political philosophy you wish in a libertarian system, but you can't practice libertarianism in a statist system. If you're in a libertarian system, and you're a Marxist who thinks the workers should own the means of production, then you can set up your factory the way you want, and give each of your workers a share of the company. No one will force you to run your business any differently. But what happens in your system when I open my factory and I'm not doing that?
Hey, you're exploiting those workers!
Really? I don't think I am. But either way, what are you going to do about it? That's the key. If your solution is,
I'll show you. See how much better my system does. Listen to my arguments and let me convince you.
Then that's fine. And maybe you will convince me. But you'll have done it without force. And guess what? If that's what you think should happen, you're a libertarian. More than that, you're a capitalist, because you think that capital should be privately owned and managed. But if your solution is,
I'll send men with guns to close down your factory if you don't comply,
then you want a Marxist system imposed on others by force. The libertarian system let you set up your Marxist factory, but the Marxist system doesn't let the libertarian set up his factory in any way that the Marxists disagree with. Let's go all out. What if you're a pure communist? Then you and your communist friends buy up a bunch of land and set up your commune. But what about the rest of us, who are owning private property and making voluntary exchanges with money? Well, it's the same thing, isn't it? You're either going to use force to stop us, or you're not.
Yes, we're gonna make you conform to communism.
Then your communist system will not allow for libertarianism the way libertarianism allowed for communism. Or,
No, I'm not gonna use force. Screw you guys. We'll be over here doing our own thing.
then congratulations, you're a libertarian. We libertarians may laugh at those Venus Project nutbars as being economically ignorant, but in a libertarian society, we wouldn't lift a finger to stop them from making the attempt. The fact that we don't think it's going to work is irrelevant to our policy that allows you to live your life in whatever way makes sense to you. But a lot of them say that the Venus Project won't work unless everyone participates, and then we have the problem. Because that means that while a libertarian society will allow for the Venus Project to operate inside it, the Venus Project will not allow any libertarian operations. This goes back to the arrogance we talked about in Part 5. All forms of statism are some form of the following.
I'm gonna force you to live your life a certain way because I know what's best.
Or at least the high priests in government know best. Again, libertarianism doesn't do that, because libertarians don't claim to know how you should live your life, or run your business, or interact with others. As long as you do it without the use of force, you're free to try your own thing, take whatever risks you feel are worth the rewards, and decide whom you're going to interact with and how. And if there is this group that comes around calling themselves government and says that if you'll just pay them 20% of your income, then you can vote for them and listen to their wisdom and do what they say because they know best, and you believe them, no libertarian will stop you giving your money to them. We only complain when those services are forced on others or when others are forced to pay for them. This is a pretty good general rule for finding out what system or philosophies or whatever are worthwhile. Can they stand on their own in the marketplace of ideas, or do they need to use force or the threat of force to get their way? If they need to use force, then why should we assume that they have anything worthwhile to offer anyone else? A sure way to tell an idea is worthless is when the person says,
It's my way or the highway.
If you're not confident your way is best, then you shouldn't force your way on others. If you are confident your way is best, then you shouldn't need to force your way on others. It's as true in government as it is in religion. And it's especially true when it's a minority of people trying to force themselves on the majority. But that ends up being surprisingly effective because of a phenomenon we'll discuss in Part 7. Stay tuned.